Welcome back to Our Journey, Their Story, where we debunk unethical journalism. The media is society's watchdog, and they have a very important role to play to inform the public about the wrongdoings of those in power. But the media is not above the law. We talk again today to Gerda Potgieter, the author of the book A Journey to the Truth, the case study of KwaZulu-Bantu Mission. Gerda, welcome back. News24 is one of the significant news providers in our country. This alone puts a huge responsibility on them to be truthful in their reports. Let's talk about the informants in the case of KwaZulu-Bantu. Gerda, how did the stories get to the media?
Well, social media played a huge role in the whole creating a media frenzy about KwaZulu-Bantu. Some media got the stories from social media and others just duplicated the stories.
You know what, you can learn so much from someone just by following what they write on social media, and then sadly people think it's the truth, they take it for the truth, and that's actually a huge misconception. So what I understand is that the media's onslaught originated in social media.
That's correct. A public investigator posted two posts on his Facebook page with a lot of allegations, no evidence, and some of the media just took the stories during the pandemic and run with it, and most of the others just duplicated. But what's more important is that the conspirators who wanted to take over the mission, they recruited people with grudges against the mission to come forward and to tell their stories to them.
Okay, back to the private investigator now. Where did he get his information from?
He was hired by the conspirators to get dirt on one of the KwaZulu-Bantu managers. And the convicted criminal that we spoke about previously, she also testified in court that she was paid for an affidavit that would credit certain of the managers at KwaZulu-Bantu. But let me read to you from her affidavit. She wrote, "I really made James and his private detective to sweat." James was the person who paid her. "I said I was called by Auntie to meet her in Durban and to deposit the remainder of the 136 million rand. So there was a plot regarding that as well, and we will not go into that. I fabricated all these lies because of the money with which I was bought, but it was all lies. So all the stories she told, private investigator and her financier, were all lies and fabrications.
There were so many things going on, in this whole story. But my question is still, how did these stories get to the media?
You will remember that an independent panel investigated all the News24 reports about KwaZulu-Bantu, and they released a comprehensive report already in 2020. And after they have interviewed all the complainants and the News24 informants, they released one of the findings was the following. Let me read to you from the report. Okay. When that's one of the complainants, could get the mission answer his questions. That's about the loan, the missing millions that they referred to. He waged a crusade against the mission. He told us, that's the independent panel, that he called Mr. Adrian Basson of News24 and went to meet him. When the story about the missing money did not garner the appropriate amount of interest, he expanded the scope of his crusade. That in effect means that the original complaints or the original allegations was about missing millions. And remember, we already spoke about the criminal who stole money from KwaZulu-Bantu. And when they didn't get the information that they needed and wanted, they extended the crusade, which means they added a lot of other allegations as well.
So the panel who investigated everything, they actually identified the media's source of information then?
Yes, they did, but he actually also identified himself. He appeared on so many platforms, on social media, digital, the CRL commission who also investigated Kwasi Sibantu. All those videos are freely available on the internet as we speak still. And he identified himself. But I think to get a proper understanding of how we get to zoom into the stories and what we deal about with in terms of credibility, let's listen to a video. Let's watch a video rather about this key witness.
But in my case, in my personal case, I know of a large number of ladies that has been raped at Sibantu, stretching from the 80s till last year. I'm talking about people that came to me for counseling. If I know of so many, how many is there really? What is the real number? I've got no idea. I was never aware of it. I was never aware of somebody, for instance, rape. I'm talking about people that came to me for counseling. If I know of so many, how many is there really? What is the real?
Hannah, yes, there clearly are different accounts of the same allegation. So in your book, you also refer to a specific incident in which this witness told Newsweek that he forgot about a serious allegation he previously made against the mission.
Yeah, you know, I scrutinized the evidence of this particular witness. I really zoomed into it. There were so many different accounts of events, firstly, but also incidents we forgot what he said previously. In the News 24 documentary Exodus, he claimed that his daughter was abused when she was at Kwasi Sibantu. At the time, she was 5 years old. She's now in her late 50s. They left Kwasi Sibantu over 30 years ago. So let me read to you what Newsweek wrote after they interviewed him after the News 24 documentation. They said, when asked how long after the incident took place he had heard about it, he gave Newsweek a detailed but radically different version to the one offered by his daughter. The rape, he said, only became known when his daughter suffered from severe depression after the birth of a child in 2012. Remember, the alleged abuse took place over 30 years ago. And she started to remember while under deep hypnosis as part of a psychological treatment. So Newsweek found it questionable that a father could forget his own daughter's alleged abuse. And they wrote, and let me read to you what Newsweek wrote. When reminded that one of the alleged victims was in fact his daughter, he replied, yes, sorry, I have forgotten of that. Yes, she was sodomized. Yes, sorry, yes, I knew about it. Sorry, I knew, yes.
I've read in your book that this eyewitness was not the only informant who took the stories to the media. Can we talk about the others?
Yes, we can. As we said, social media played a tremendous role and to create the media frenzy. And I want to read a post for you from one of the Facebook pages of the previous witnesses' family members. She wrote, this mission, Kwasi Sibantu mission, KwaZulu-Natal produces Aquelle water. The things going on in this place is horrendous. If anyone wants more information, feel free to inbox me. But there was also another witness, and we will share a video about her just now. I just want to read what she wrote on Twitter. In 1996, she wrote, that is the next witness that we're going to talk about, her Kwasi Sibantu story, backed by other people. The beauty is that Kwasi Sibantu didn't have an Mzini and Aquelle to lose then. And this also that was actually what they were about, that they were after, to close the mission for the sake of their businesses, lucrative businesses. But you know what? Let's play a video for our followers so they can understand what we are dealing with in terms of the witnesses.
And my niece, with one other woman that I know, were being held captive. There's a recording of her on the missions on Kwasi Zabantu's website, of her confessing to being a Satanist.
Let's move on. I've read in your book that the eyewitness was not the only informant who took the stories to the media. So can we talk a little bit about the others?
Yes, we can. But before we do that, let me just read you two posts from, we talk about social media and how the stories get into the media.
Mm.
I want to read two posts for you also, but this is from family members of the previous witness that we've just watched the video. The mission station, Kwasi Bantu Mission, KwaZulu-Natal, produces Aquila water. The things going on in this place is horrendous. If anyone wants more info, feel free to inbox me. This is clearly a recruitment of anybody that's got an issue with Kwasi Bantu. And she also wrote, in 1996, EBEE 40 wrote her Kwasi Bantu story in Femina. We will talk about that witness a little bit later. Backed by so-and-so. The beauty is that KSB, that's Kwasi Bantu, didn't have an Mzeni and Aquila to lose then. So clearly that's part of the plot. That is the idea, to close down the businesses.
But what about the other women the News 24 informant spoke about in the News 24 documentary? The News 24 witness spoke about two women who were held captive.
Yes, so the first woman that she spoke about is her own niece, Louise Pretorius.
2019, the best and worst year of my life. The best year because it was the year I was set free from a debilitating technological addiction. But the worst year because it was the year that my aunt, Erika Borman, decided to use my name, her niece's name, to fabricate a story around it and use it to attack Kwasi Bantu Mission. Well, here I am, in the place that was my retreat, a place where I found the help that I needed. But it's in this place that she says I was held captive, a place that has no burglar guards. And apparently I was oppressed and all the rest of it. Well, I go on record today to say it's not true.
We've just seen Louise's video where she said she was not held captive. The other woman is identified in the News 24 documentary as Amanda. And News 24 reported that she was held captive, she was abused, she was dragged, and then afterwards they read to her from the Bible. A lot of sensation, a lot of emotional words that they used to describe her story. And I've interviewed Amanda. By the way, she identified herself later. She came forward to say, but those are all lies. She identified herself as Samantha, and we all know her as Sammy. Samantha Elof, her surname is Elof. So she came forward even before News 24's documentary was sent out in the public. She came forward to say that those were lies. And her emails in which she wrote that is also in the book. People can read that. But let's just play a short clip in which she clearly states that that was also a lie.
Yeah, she said to me, Sammy, the mission were like so bad to me when I was growing up, and there happened so many bad things to me when I was growing up, and I want the mission to close, and you are the only one that can help me close the mission. I want you to go and say that you were raped by someone on the mission, and it never happened. And it almost did close the mission down.
Wow, this is too much to absorb. Let's leave Sammy's story for the next podcast. I want to end this podcast on a very positive note. Sammy, or her alias Amanda, is reportedly doing very well. She's back at Kwasi Bantu. They had forgiven everything and she's carrying on with her life there. In the meantime, until the next podcast, you can go to Devoted Magazine, issue 42, and you can read her entire story. And I can promise you, it is so inspiring. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.